Welcome back to Disgustingly Easy, the podcast where we break down transformation into the simplest, most human steps. No overwhelm, no perfectionism, no 42-part plan, just the truth that your entire life can change when you let things start disgustingly easy. I am your host, Bec Cameron, founder of The Long Game, and today's guest embodies our ethos in the most perfect way. So Tiff is my content creator who came along to our most recent Long Game retreat. If you were there, you would have met her. And one thing that you might not know is that she once lived the classic success life, corporate lawyer, high achiever, doing everything right on paper, but completely burning out in the process. Life hit her hard. She lost her mum to pancreatic cancer as she was qualifying to become a lawyer. Her world cracked open. But instead of clinging to a life that she'd already built, Tiff has actually rebuilt, investing over $20,000 in professional and personal development, reclaiming her voice and designing a life that actually fits. So this episode is about grief. It's about identity, burnout, birth, and the disgustingly easy steps that got her from breakdown to a beautiful life full of creative expression. Tiff, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. What an intro. Oh my gosh, I feel honored.
I love reading the intros in front of people because instead of it being pre-recorded, they actually get the that is
Like,
my
oh
life.
my gosh, that happened. So true.
Yeah. So before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you serve?
Yes, so I am a content creator and I also design event stationery on the side, and that is kind of my other business. But through content creation, I capture brands, events, spaces. As Beck mentioned, I came and shot her retreat, which was so beautiful. So just like having people crack open in spaces, I love being a part of that. Like in having had such a huge personal development journey myself, and now being able to be the fly on the wall is one of my favorite things, and being able to capture that from a creative lens is just what I absolutely love doing.
Yeah, because I mean, I've done a lot of professional development, a lot of personal development, and you're right. Like, obviously, it's one thing to be in that space as a participant, but being there as a facilitator or an observer or someone capturing the journey, you feel really lucky to kind of be a part of people's journey in that way and to witness what they're going through, and you never leave that space unchanged. Like even just witnessing people's evolution and transformation and breakdowns can have a really big impact on you as a person.
100%. It's like, even as you said that, I got full body goosebumps where I was like, that is how you would encapsulate it. Yeah, I can see myself in so many people's stories where it's like just something that they say you can resonate with. And I'm just there capturing it. Like I was saying to a client last week or the other week where I said, if you watch me behind the scenes taking content, I'm smiling the entire time. I'm just like, yes, like this is amazing. And seeing people, yeah, just open up and be vulnerable is so cool.
Amazing. So let's go all the way back to you qualifying as a lawyer. I guess if we rewound all the way back to when you were at uni, what did you think your life was going to look like? What did you imagine in your head?
I truly had no clue. When I think back of the thing that I've been saying a lot recently is I feel like I've spent the first 28 years of my life unconscious. And only, yeah, in the last 2 years when I went on my personal development journey, I'm like, oh, who am I? And really discovering who I am. So I think back then just had no clue what my life was going to turn out like. I just thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder, have the high paying job and work in an office and wear office clothes. Like as superficial as it sounds, I was just like, yeah, that's what everyone else does. And then you buy a house and you get married and you have kids, like the very conventional life. And I'm from New Zealand, so that is pretty much the common thing that everyone does. And yeah, I just really didn't picture anything else.
Yeah. And I get that. I feel like when you don't know exactly what you want to do, and I always envied kids who were in high school who were like, I'm going to be this because I had no clue. I went and enrolled in a Bachelor of Arts purely because I thought I was supposed to go to university. And that was the most open-ended, beige, non-committal degree that I could enroll in, that I thought, well, at least I'll qualify, I'll do some subjects that I'm interested in. Didn't really think about accumulating the tens and tens of thousands of dollars of debt.
Yeah.
And then I will work it out once I do something post grad. And I burnt out in my first 18 months because I lived at college, and college was insane as a neurodivergent, highly sensitive, quite introverted person. Going to a college that had an insane drinking culture did not suit me at all. But when you were coming to the end of your degree, and I guess starting to picture this life that you'd kind of had some idea of, your mum ended up getting really sick. Can you tell us a little bit about what that started to look like as you were coming to the end of your studies?
Yeah, so that was just a wild experience where, think this, I've done 5 years of study. I'm doing a double degree in commerce and law. I'm at the library every single day, assignments, exams, all the things. And so I'm in my final semester of uni. I'm so excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm almost at the finish line, but also the stress of having to apply for postgrad jobs and internships, clerkships, all the things. And yeah, I think it was in my final semester of university, and my mum got diagnosed with cancer. And by that time, it was diagnosed as stage 4. And we just had no idea what that meant because we didn't know anyone growing up who had cancer. I didn't know anyone whose parents had gotten sick and passed away. Like, I had one friend whose mum passed away when we were in high school, but it wasn't from, I think it was a really sudden death.
Mm.
And so I wasn't around death a lot growing up. And I was 21, and I just had no idea what it actually meant. I remember I found out, and I was with my partner, Adrian, at the time. And I think one of us just Googled like the life expectancy, and it said stage 4 is less than 6 months. And my brain could just not compute what that meant. I was like, oh, she's just sick. My thought was, oh, she's just going to get better. And I think reading that, yeah, I just couldn't comprehend what that actually meant and what that was going to look like if my mum passed away, because she was such a huge part of our family. Like, I've got 5 sisters, no brothers. And so it's just all females. And my mum was the one that did everything for us. And me being the baby of the family, I was just like, she's always going to take care of us.
Mm.
And I think that was, yeah, when the rug was pulled out under me. But equally, I still didn't understand what that actually meant with all the things that followed with the hospital and hospice and all of that stuff.
And I think, most of us have this idea in our head of that kind of thing happens to other people, especially if you've not had any intimate experience with it, not to mention culturally our experience or our way of handling or dealing with death is very far removed, and we don't have much to do with it these days. So we don't see the process, we don't see what it looks like. When you were trying to balance finishing up your uni studies and supporting your mum, I mean, did you give yourself grace? Was that the kind of thing that started to help you develop the mindset around taking it easy, or did you really try and just do it all?
Yeah, I think I definitely was in the mindset where I was just like, I'm going to do it all. And obviously, I don't like to say that I regret things in life because everything happens for a reason. But I think one of my biggest kind of regrets, if you could say, is that I just felt like I needed to go, go, go. And even when I finished studying, I was still working part time, like doing retail stuff. And I still took up the extra shifts during Christmas and things like that. And when I look back, kind of thinking, why did I do that and not just spend more time with her? But it was also my sisters and I were taking turns at the hospital. So we would do, luckily there were 6 of us because we
Mm.
would take turns in pairs staying at the hospital. And my older sisters were juggling their full-time jobs and all of that. And so, yeah, I think I was just very lucky that my sisters and I had each other because we just did our shifts at the hospital together. And my dad would be there and we would cycle and rotate and like bring the food, and we would sleep over and be there for all of her meds and things like that. So I guess to answer your question, I definitely went in the direction of I'm going to do everything. And yeah, I don't think I took it easy on myself.
Yeah. Do you look back on that now and think I didn't need to put that much pressure on myself?
100%. I wish that I could go back and be like, girl, you need to calm down because yeah, time's just going to move so quick and you're not even going to think about this retail job that
Yeah.
you were working in your 20s and it was Christmas period and busy and they needed people and that was not important in the grand scheme of things.
Do you think part of it was like trying to maybe avoid the discomfort of sitting in those feelings of this is an inevitability and mum is going to die? And I don't really want to face that yet. So I'm going to busy myself in every other aspect of my life.
100%. That is like such an accurate way to put it because when I was working in retail, I was working with way younger people than me. I was in my final year of university, but everyone was like 16, 17. And so I didn't tell any of them because they were too young and I didn't want to burden. Yeah, I was like, this is my retail job. I'm coming here to kind of escape. And the only person that I had told was a security guard that we worked with. So he was in his 50s and we still keep in touch today. He's like one of my spiritual mentors. And yeah, he was the only person that I had told in that workplace. And then also my manager.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, definitely felt like an escape or an avoidance because it was so busy and chaotic that I didn't have time to think. I just worked.
I remember I was doing my double degree in social work arts, working full time in a cafe, and my now husband's younger sister took her life. And I remember when I did finally go back to work way too soon because, they needed me. And, you have this idea in your head that other people have the expectation that you move on. And I remember someone asking me about her because they didn't know that she'd passed. And whilst it caught me off guard, I actually lent into the conversation because I was like, I get to talk about her as if she's still alive. I get to pretend. And just that moment or being able to just act as though that thing isn't happening or that big sad thing didn't happen is relief from
Mm,
the density and the relentlessness of those feelings and that sadness and that grief. So I can totally understand why you would want to do that. What was the time or what did it look like following your mum's passing before you kind of got back to real life, for lack of a better word, or started moving on and getting a job in law?
yeah. So what actually happened was, and again, the divine timing of everything is I had applied for internships, clerkships, when I was in university and I didn't get any of them. And so I was at a point where I was applying for full-time jobs for first year legal roles. And I think I had applied for one job and like me being, I'll just apply for one or two and surely I'll just get it. And I really vibed. I was like, I'll just figure it out. And so I applied for it. And then I thought I was a shoo-in. I was like, we got along really well. I got to the third interview. I was like, all right, this is cool, but I'll just let it go because my mum was sick at the time and I was studying for exams. And they said, hey, you didn't get the job, but you were our next best fit. Like if it doesn't go through or anything happens, like we'll contact you. So I was like, okay, cool. Was super disappointed, but again, was distracted by my mum being sick. And then the first this was one of the first times that we were all at the hospital, like my entire family were at the hospital together because this was when they were going to give us options for treatment. So we all wanted to be there. And it felt like a movie. We were in this massive waiting room, waiting to go see the doctors to talk about her chemo options. And they emailed me and they said, hey, we actually have decided to take on another graduate because we really, really liked you and would like to offer it to you. And so my entire family was there when I found out, which was just such a also bittersweet moment. And I remember telling my mum and she was so excited. And I was really lucky because I think in January when she was in hospice, I emailed them because I was meant to start in February. And I was like, hey, my mum's actually in hospice right now. Could I delay my start date by a few weeks? And I remember my mum saying to me, like, just start work, just go, like, start your job. And I was trying not to worry her. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think I can start later. And that was, yeah, just another aspect that I remember where she just wanted me to be okay. obviously, because I'm the youngest and all of that. And now thinking back, because I would be like, oh, that was so nice that they emailed back and said, take as much time as you need, when obviously they know what it means when someone's in hospice. And it's my mum, where, yeah, I was just like, wow, they told me to take as much time off as I need. And so I gave myself a month. Yeah, they're off a month, that's fine. So I was like, okay, I'll just postpone until March, because she passed Feb 7th and I started, I think, yeah, literally a month later.
That's incredible. And what was that like? I mean, obviously you're excited because you're starting a new job, but I guess once the newness and the excitement wore off, how did it go working so close to after your mum had passed?
Yeah, well, I think that was, my coping mechanism was keeping busy. And so that was the momentum of, oh, I've started at a new job. And then at the same time, I had to start my studies to get admitted to the bar. So I was
Mm,
studying outside of work and then working, and then also attending the classes because it was on site as well, like every week. And yeah, I think I just threw myself into work and I didn't actually allow myself to grieve properly. Like I had that month, but I don't remember that month. I think I was just in bed. If I asked my partner, Adrian, I think he was like, yeah, you didn't do much for that entire month. It was wild because I joined that law firm, and one of my workmates, her mum had passed from cancer like a couple years prior. And then another workmate, she had a family member that passed too. And so it felt like I had met people who were also on a grief journey. And we were such a small team that I think it was all also divinely orchestrated that I had people that I could lean on, because I didn't know anyone in my real life, like friendships and things, that had lost someone
mm.
close to them. And so I think that also really helped a lot, knowing other people who had been through similar experiences.
Okay, so knowing what you know now about grief, processing trauma, doing the deep work, and the things you've learned through your personal development journey, what do you think the consequences were for you not processing your grief, I guess, in a timely manner and instead throwing yourself into work in such a way to be a distraction?
Yeah, I think the consequences for sure would have been that I stayed in the legal profession longer than I think I needed to. And whilst I equally believe that, the timing of everything was perfect and as it was meant to, but I just, yeah, had so many coping mechanisms that I just thought were normal. Like I would be so stressed and constantly burnt out that after work, I would just be the first one in the like KFC drive through and just eating my feelings, and then coming home and working some more. And it just felt like I lived on autopilot for so
Mm,
long. Whereas I think if I had sat with my grief more and maybe processed it, I would have, yeah, had the lessons a lot quicker, where, even just a year ago is when I went all in
mm.
on myself and started a full time, or started working for myself and starting a business full time. Whereas I think that I wouldn't have taken as many detours.
Mm,
Yeah, because it feels like now I really know the meaning of what her passing meant.
and what's that?
And that would be that life is just so short, and you really, yeah, just never know when your time here is up. And I just spent so much time being distracted and not actually sitting with who I was or what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. It was just all of these ideas that I had had for myself. And now finally coming into my own, I'm like, oh, I had no idea that, this was my authenticity or what I wanted to do. And stepping into that now, I'm like, wow, again, all part of the process. But
Yeah. Without the lessons, without the journey, you don't get the lessons, but it's still, you look back in hindsight and you're like, oh, I really could have done things differently.
yeah.
When you were working and you're there, you've become a lawyer, you're training for the bar, when did you start to realize, or when did the cracks start to appear in terms of your burnout and your experience of burnout, and you start to realize that like maybe you're not holding everything together as well as you could or as well as you should be?
after probably my first year. So I was there for 3.5 years. And after I got admitted to the bar, I would have had a year of experience, almost a year. And so that's when your responsibilities really ramp up as well, because you get a lot more responsibility with clients, or you have more of an onus to retain clients, or you're more the forward facing rather than your supervising partner. And I think that was when it really ramped up for me because my stress levels just went to an all-time high. And yeah, I just remember constantly feeling like I needed to work and being, yeah, just in this constant hamster wheel of I need to do this and this. And I think it was because my partner Adrian, he is not in the legal profession, so he would hear me talk about it every single day. And I just, thought that was normal. I was like, everyone's burning out, everyone's tired, everyone's trying to climb up the corporate ladder when you're a graduate and you want to get to intermediate and senior. Everyone's just doing this and everyone's not happy or stressed. And so, yeah, it just felt so normal to me where, yeah, my workmates and I, we would just constantly be stressed and talking about how stressed we were.
And how did that stress, like, what did that look like when you guys were talking? What were the symptoms that you were experiencing to do with stress?
Yeah, so for me, my big thing was I had acid reflux. So
Mm.
every time I had stress, I would just get consistent acid reflux. And then I went to the doctors and they were like, oh, I think you have IBS. And I was like, because I shit myself before every meeting because I'm so stressed, And I was like, okay, maybe I do have IBS. But looking back now, I'm like, no, that was just my body's way of responding to stress because it just couldn't hold it. And when I look back at photos now, I became so inflamed because I was just holding so much, I guess, fluid and retention. But at the time, because I'm considered petite and skinny, it didn't I couldn't tell because I was seeing myself every day, but it's only when I look back at photos I see
Mm.
how much stress affected me, and no one really would have noticed either. But I just remember looking at myself in photos at the time and being like, I don't like how I look, but
Mm.
just thinking maybe I had some sort of body dysmorphia or something because everyone's like, you're so skinny, you're so pretty, and all that stuff. But I look back and I'm like, no, that was stress.
Absolutely. What was the moment that you decided that you were going to leave?
So my partner Adrian, he moved to Melbourne. So that was always his plan, was to move to Melbourne. So we were doing long distance and moved to Melbourne during COVID. And so they actually, you guys went into the
Mm.
longest lockdown. And so we did long distance for almost 2 years. And I just remember he he was saying to me, when are you going to move over? And I just remember I kept moving the goalpost. I was like,
Mm.
I need to become intermediate lawyer, became intermediate. And then I was like, I need to become senior. And I remember my bosses at the time were kind of dangling the carrot where they were like, you've exceeded all of the expectations to get to senior, but you're just not there yet. And next year you will, and you've met all the criteria, but next year. And I just remember being like, okay, I'll move after I hit senior, thinking, the job, the title, the salary, all the things. And yeah, I just kept moving the goalpost. And it was Christmas 2022. And I remember thinking, pre-Christmas. And that's when the legal profession really ramps up because everyone wants work done before Christmas and the shutdown period. And so I remember, I believe my boss got sick. And so I had to take on a lot of the work. And I was just staying up every single night until like midnight, 1 a.m., and then waking up at 5 a.m. so I could do more work and then go into the office and work the whole day and then come home and work. And I just remember calling Adrian crying every single day, being like, I don't know how I'm going to survive the next month because it was the
Mm.
beginning of, I can't even remember what time period that was, but I just remember, yeah, just crying every day, being like, I'm so stressed. I don't know how all this work's going to get done. I don't know how I'm going to make it to Christmas and all of that stuff. And I think that was the year prior prior to me quitting. And yeah, I just couldn't see a way out. I was just like, I'm so close. I'm so close to the next promotion, the next thing. And I think that was definitely the breaking point for me, where he was like, once you move to Melbourne, you can figure out whether you want to keep doing this, but you need to, yeah, kind of make a decision on what you want to do. And at that point, obviously I was missing him a lot. So I was like, yeah, I want to move. I want to see what's out there. And I think that was, yeah, really the turning point for me of how sustainable is this? Because if I'm constantly burning out, and again, it's like my partner's getting the worst parts of me, my family's getting the worst parts of me, but my boss is getting the best because I need to, be on my best behavior. And I just thought that was normal.
It is normal when I guess that's all you see from the people that you work with. Because when I worked in child protection, everyone was stressed, everyone was depressed, everyone was, we were doing removals of children, bringing them back to the office before we even knew where they would be going in terms of placement. And then literally with kids in the office with us, calling placements and staying there till 10 or 11 at night and then finding somewhere for these children to go. Some people would even be forced to be in situations like having to get a hotel with children because there was no foster care placement. Everyone was exhausted. Everyone was miserable and catty and nasty to each other. And the reason I burnt out was just the huge amount of pressure that was put on you because there were no services and there were no supports available. And you were like the end of the line in terms of services. How did you quit? What did you do?
I remember, I think I was working from home that day and I was like, I actually have to tell my boss that I want to resign. And I was like, I'm just going to have to do it over Zoom. I think, did we go into another lockdown? I can't remember, but I had to tell her over Zoom, which was crazy because I mean, we did have a really good relationship and things like that, but it just, yeah, got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And I remember, yeah, calling her over Zoom. And because I think they probably saw it coming because they knew that there was going to be an expiry point because I resigned and my boss was like, obviously she was like super sad about it. And then they came back and offered me to be able to work remotely from Melbourne because they were like, we can give you that option if you want, even, yeah, if you want to stay a bit longer. And I thought about it. It was so tempting because
What
I
was the
could
salary?
at the time that I was on 1,000. So even when I think back, I'm like, wow, because I was gunning for the senior, which would have been probably a 20,000 pay rise. So that in my brain was, my gosh, I'm making 20, not excluding tax and all that stuff. But yeah, looking in hindsight now, I'm like, no amount of money could make me stay. And yeah, it was very attractive. It was like you could decide the days you want to work and all of that stuff. But I just knew that I needed to take a clean break.
And what did
And
that look like, I guess, when you quit and then move?
so I quit so I think I left in September and then I actually took 6 months off to just like hang out with my family before I moved to Melbourne. And Adrian and I were planning to go traveling for 2 months. So yeah, we were traveling from March to May. And so I had that 6 month prior to just kind of hang out and honestly just de-stress.
How long did it take you to drop I guess, the panic mode that you'd been in?
Well, it's crazy because I thought that quitting would be so much fun. You're like, yay, I'm leaving the full-time job. I can already see you shaking your head. Yeah, it was like, I'm quitting. Like, this is my decision. I'm going to move and all these things. And then what I didn't expect was, yeah, it's not that I fell into a depression. It's just that I went through a period of being down because I came to this realization that it felt like I didn't realize how much of my identity was tied to being a lawyer. And so losing that felt really, really, really uncomfortable. And I was like, if I'm not a lawyer, then who am I? What worth do I have? What am I going to do? And that was kind of the conundrum that I sat in. And I thought the 6 months was going to be so fun. And I'm just sitting here like not wanting to see anyone, not wanting to do anything because everyone's, going to ask you, what are you doing next? Are you applying for law jobs over there? Are you going to just carry on? Are you going to, just be a lawyer? And I was like, no, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And going from something that is a highly specialized, degree certified career to something that is not. And because I moved from social work and to personal training, going from something that needed, a 5-year double bachelor's to needing a Cert 3. That for me was a massive shift, or it took a massive shift in my ego to be able to allow myself to let go of the high achiever, the always getting really good marks, the going to uni and getting all the degrees and doing all the things you're supposed to do because of who that makes you. And then having to go and do a Cert 3 to me at the time felt like a massive step down, and like I'm letting down my family. My family's very academic oriented, and it took a really long time for me. Again, same as you, like didn't really want to tell anyone, felt like I was kind of taking a step backwards. But obviously now the way it's all turned out, it's all been for the better, and I'm so glad I did it. How did you get past that identity shift? How did you find who you were meant to be outside of being a lawyer?
Yeah, well, it was such a process because now looking back, I think of how much shame I felt around leaving the profession. And even though it was my choice and I felt like I learned what I needed to, and I was so happy to close the chapter, but it was really just me thinking about what it would look like on the outside. Kind of what you were saying, it's the biggest hit to your ego, especially, yeah, you get the student debt, the years of studying, and you're like, okay, and now I'm just going to go do something else. And that's just all a waste,
Mm.
and
Yeah, the waste. You wasted your degree.
yeah. And I
Mm.
think that was hard for me to sit with. It wasn't that like my family was so incredibly supportive. Like they never pushed me to go into the legal profession. That was just my own doing, which is also not common for, our culture and things like that. So yeah, it was just really that identity of if I'm not this, what am I? And yeah, that kind of accolade. And even learning, yeah, when I stepped into my next role after, which was in a completely different industry, it's interesting because when you say in a conversation, I'm a lawyer, everyone automatically has this immediate response of, oh, wow, that's amazing. Or, what cases are you working on? Like, what's it like? And because it's here and everyone can understand it. Whereas when you're in a completely different profession, everyone's like, what's that? Like, what do
Mhm.
you do?
Yeah, dealing with the, especially for women like us who kind of like make up our own roles, and we're into entrepreneurship and we're into just creating a life that looks how we want it to look, is very confusing for people. And I think that confusion can often feel like it puts you on the outer a little bit. Like if people can't understand it, then they don't really want to ask you about it. So they don't really want to talk about it. And then they don't feel like they're interested in you. And then that can feel a little bit like a distancing from people.
Like a isolation that you kind of feel, which is also, I feel like the entryway into entrepreneurship is just this isolation because now when people are like, what do you do? Like content creation? What's that? Like social
Do
media?
you make
What is that?
money from that?
Yeah, like what is that? Like you post TikToks or Instagrams or like what do you do? And it's such a different, yeah, where you have to just hold yourself and your self-trust because yeah, again, it's where me and we're building a life that we love and what feels good to us. It might not necessarily look a certain way on the outside, but yeah, you just have to hold a lot of projections.
Yeah. And they're all asking us the questions that we're asking ourselves. So it's like compounding the questioning and the anxiety that you already have within yourself. And not only do you have to justify it to yourself and stand in your own identity that you're trying to create, but then you also feel like you're having to justify yourself to other people, which can then feel like an attack
Yeah.
if you don't center yourself and ground yourself and fully back what you're doing. And I feel like for me, it took me a long time to do that, to even call myself a coach. I don't think the coaching industry has a great reputation, whether it's fitness coaching or personal coaching. Coming back to this 6 months where you were trying to kind of find yourself outside of law, obviously needing to heal from your burnout, what kind of things did you do, I guess, in terms of like your physical health to take care of yourself and try and, I guess, claw back some peace and calm?
Yeah. I went on a lot of walks. That was my thing where COVID kick-started me with going for walks because that's when we all went on walks. And I just found how much I loved it. And for me, being by the water, the beach is very grounding for me. And so that was a huge part of, yeah, just my healing was spending a lot of time alone. And I think that was really good with my partner being overseas because I was forced to be alone. And also when we were doing long distance, we say was the best thing for our relationship because I had become so codependent after my mum's passing that it was just this. And so I think definitely kind of that 6 month period, really just focused on walks, being alone, recharging. I got back into things that I loved doing, which was reading, just creative stuff, photography, dabbling in just all that kind of thing where, now that I think back, I wish I could have done a lot more, but that was kind of the beginning because my personal development journey didn't start till a year later.
I feel like a big part of reclaiming yourself after a burnout or an experience like that is what do I actually like to do? Because when you have a job that is so all consuming, all of the things that you like to do become a thing that you don't have time for. So I didn't read anything that wasn't related to my job or related to what I was studying. I didn't do anything outside of work. I did CrossFit at the time, but that was more of a coping mechanism and a way for me to I don't know, beat the pain away, just absolutely flog myself into a stupor so I could go home and roll into bed and go to sleep. Yeah. So in terms of moving through all that and then into your personal development journey, what did that look like?
Yeah, so my personal development journey really didn't kick off until I moved to Australia. So I moved, and I think that was also a big part when you're part of such a big family and you've constantly got family things and hangouts, and you've got siblings to hang out with, and friends, and just things to keep you occupied and busy. And while they're amazing, I think once I moved to Australia, I had so much free time where where I didn't know what to do with myself. I
Yeah.
was like, again, it was the thing of what do I enjoy doing? What do I like? And that was actually when I started going to the gym, which
Mm.
prior to that, I was so inconsistent. I probably had a gym membership. I went like 5 times in the year that I was signed up to
Yeah.
the gym.
You just paid for everyone else to go.
Yeah, 100%. And that was really, I started going to the gym and that I really found my enjoyment for strength
Mm.
training, where I just thought, that's not for me, that's for the males, and I'm a weak person. But I just realized how much of a mental thing it was and how good it made me feel after. And that was cool because, I had never been a consistent gym goer prior to that. And that was definitely a really big part of my kind of personal development journey. And because I was in a new job in a new industry where they really valued working on yourself because it was in the personal development space and taking time and prioritizing your health. And so I think it was cool, again, kind of what you were saying about the environment is being around other like-minded people who prioritize their health and their family time, friend time. Yeah, personal development because none of my friends back home were into that. And so it was like this big exposure to me of so many people are doing it. And I think obviously Australia is so much more expansive and there's so many coaches and things like that. So that was my first exposure to personal development where I was like, wow, I'd listen to all the podcasts and read the books, but not the actual real time kind of coaching and trainings and all of that stuff.
And implementation of all of the learnings.
Yeah.
I love what you said about I thought I was a weak person and then I went and tried it and realized that I could actually do this. I could actually be strong. I can actually strength train. It is one of my biggest things that I love for women, especially as they're going through this identity, death, rebirth sort of situation, whether that's to do with leaving a job or through motherhood, is so much of our worth is determined or seems determined by our output and what we can do and who we can serve and who we can help. And whether that's happened through a job, whether that's happened through becoming a mother and you feel like your whole identity is wrapped up in caring and taking care and being supportive and, overextending yourself, to then go and do something that you get a sense of worth and purpose and achievement that you can celebrate yourself, and you don't need the external validation, and you don't need someone else to tell you that you are good, and you can go and achieve something that is unrelated to other people and get PBs and feel stronger and like start to see the change in the mirror of like more definition or whatever people's goals are. I really love when people start to turn around and be like, wow, strength training has made me feel really proud of myself, or strength training has given me something to do that is just so entirely for me. And it has an achievement that is just for me. I'm not trying to do this to prove myself or to be worthy for anyone else. So in terms of moving into the personal development space, you said that you got a job in that field.
Yes. So I got a job as an executive assistant, so in an online education company. So yeah, my boss was a mentor and a coach, and she was in the personal development space. So that was just, yeah, a whole completely different industry to what I was used to, because it was also all remote as well. So I was the only one based in Melbourne, and then I had two other colleagues who were based in other states as well. So it was an interesting experience also moving countries and then working from home.
Yeah. And what kind of things did you do in that role?
I was an executive assistant for most of my time that I was there, but at the same time, I got to dabble in social media because a lot of her platform is social media. So all of the Instagram stuff I got immersed into, which I loved, and just learning about online education and teaching courses online. That was really my first exposure to the coaching industry and personal development, and seeing how many people you could connect with all over the world, but you're all just, yeah, segregated, and seeing the communities that can be built through just the online space was something I had never seen before.
And obviously something in that ticked something in your brain that was like, ooh, I'm good at this. I like this. This feels creative. This feels expansive. How did you go from, I guess, just kind of dabbling your feet into the waters of social media to becoming a content creator?
Yeah, so that was my first exposure, where I had always loved social media. Like, I loved YouTubers, I loved all of that stuff, but I just thought, it's entertainment. I just
Mm.
am a consumer. I love consuming all of this stuff. And then once actually being in it and learning about, data and analytics and actually creating the content and doing it for someone else was interesting, because obviously they've got their own personal brand that they're trying to build. So my creativity was in the perspective of growing their business and growing their brand. And so it was a really cool exposure to see, like, doing it for someone else. And I think along the way, I just loved it so much. And then I got promoted to social media manager, which was my dream job. I just was so over the moon. I was like, this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. And then, the rose colored glasses come off, and a month into my new role was when I actually ended up resigning. And that was a whole thing for me. But in that 1 month period, it was so intense that I felt like I had supercharged what I had learnt in such a short space of time, where I just had this realization of, I love this, but equally, I would love to do it on my own. And at that point, I didn't know that I was going to do it on my own. I just thought, I want to do something of my own. And I don't know what it is, but I want to put all of my creativity into it. And doing it for someone else is a different level, because, yeah, you've got their vision, their goals. And whilst I loved it, I wanted my creativity to be the full expression.
Mm.
And so that was, yeah, when I decided to resign and go all in on myself. And I had no clue what that was going to look like. And I had started a side hustle of doing event stationery online. And so I thought that was going to be my thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this and do that. And I started creating content, not like until 6 months later, probably. And then I joined a content community, and obviously I met you in person, all of that fun stuff.
Okay.
And I just got exposed to the world of content on a more like personal brand level. And someone who I'd actually worked with had gone into wedding content creation. And I had a call with her, and I said, hey, what's this thing you're doing? And she was like, oh, I go to weddings and shoot content from my iPhone. Like, it's such a huge industry now. Like, everyone's doing it for businesses and events and everything. And I thought, oh, I didn't know you could do that because my whole life I've taken stuff on my phone,
Mm.
videos, family things, everything. And I thought the only option was going into photography and videography. And I thought I was going to be a photographer at some point. After I left the legal profession,
Yeah.
I had a camera and I thought I was going to be a photographer. And that was my whole thing. And so when I had heard that there was an entire industry on content creation, I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. And it was all the pieces of the puzzle coming together of all of the things that I love. It was like photography, videography, social media, and then now obviously into connecting with other people and sharing your unique story and building a personal brand. Yeah, just realizing that I was already going to all of these family events, life events, and taking content. And then I was like, oh, I can do this as a job. What do you mean?
One of the things that I've seen you speak about on your social media is moving from that social media manager role into the job that you're kind of describing now. It looks like it was really tough towards the end of that social media management role, but you managed to cut ties a lot quicker than you cut ties in your legal profession. Do you feel like you took the lessons from when you finished up there into that and you were able to spot a lot quicker? This isn't right.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And that was also, it just felt like a culmination because at that point I had really been learning about regulating my nervous system. And so in that first month of my new role, I was doing breath work every morning because I was so stressed. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do breath work every day. Like before I opened my emails, I was doing breath work. Before I was going to bed, I was doing breath work and going for walks and stuff and just trying to calm myself because I knew that I just something felt off and it
Mm.
definitely felt like I was able to pick up on it faster. And even, yeah, in that last month, like on my socials, I had recorded videos of me leaving the day that I resigned. And I just knew in that moment that I was being led to something bigger. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to record this because I know I'm going to look back and know that this was all part of the plan. Whereas I think when I was leaving the legal profession, I just didn't know like what I was going to do. Whereas this time I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just had built so much certainty in myself that it didn't matter where I was going to go. I just knew that I'd be okay.
And this is why personal development is so important. Tell me a little bit about how you have followed the breadcrumbs to this moment now, where obviously you and I met a couple of months ago. I was really impressed. And I told you I was really impressed by the way when I interviewed you for the content creator position, your level of certainty and your level of professionalism was outstanding. And for those who don't know or haven't heard me tell the story, I pitched to Tiff that she come and film the long game event. And when I asked her how much her services were, she replied with a question and asked how much I was happy to pay or how much, I thought that the service was worth. And I just thought that was so ballsy because if you know anything about interviewing or questioning people or trying to get information, the person who asks the question is the person in control of the conversation. And to me, that stood out a lot, that I asked a really big, important question. And instead of fumbling or getting caught up or starting to justify your prices, you just turned around to me and answered it with a question. I thought that was so cool. But tell me a little bit about how you've followed the breadcrumbs or times in which, I mean, you've spoken to it briefly here, but times in which you had to kind of take a bit of a leap of faith to get where you're at.
What I can vividly remember was what really kickstarted my personal development journey. It was New Year's Eve of 2023. So that was like my first year of living in Melbourne. And I remember I decided to invest in like 3 courses with my now business mentor, Dij. And I just remember it was $3,000, I think, $2,000 or $3,000. And I just remember being like, what am I actually doing? Like, this is a lot of money, a lot of money at the time. And just having this thought to myself of if I'm going to move overseas and live away from my family and do all of these things, I need to really grow and put myself out there and see what I like. And I just felt really called to Dij and investing in this. And I was like, you know what? This is not just going to be a New Year's resolution. I'm actually going to take this seriously and see what I can get out of it and what I can learn and integrate. And I think that investment and what followed after that was like a domino effect of, oh
Mm,
my God, I just, fell in love with learning about myself and actually growing. Because if you went back to that version of me, I was so lazy. I was so undisciplined. I had the biggest ego. You could ask Adrian, he would confirm everything, like so defensive, just selfish, like all the things that you can think of. That was me. And especially with my mum's passing, it was very easy for me to fall into the victim mindset. And even with the legal profession, it was like everything happened to me, not for me, and not recognizing the part that I had played in, obviously staying there and just not feeling like I was a victor. It was I was a victim.
yeah. Absolutely. I think in terms of personal development, something I always try to convey when people are thinking about investing in themselves or putting down, or enough money to have skin in the game, because I think that's really important. You don't ever follow through on a $19 investment. You are so
Yeah.
easy to forget that you bought that course if it cost you $25. So when I'm asking for people to have skin in the game, what I like to remind them is that this isn't actually going to change when you start working with me. The change happens, or the transformation happens, at the investment. The second you decide that I'm the person who is investing in this, I am someone who spends $3, $5, $10, $20,000 myself in order to help myself grow, learn, and become a better human. That's where the change occurs, not when you learn the skills, not when you get the download or you get the course or you watch the videos. So you've spoken to a little bit about the difference in the person that you are now versus you were back when you were before you invested or before you did break free from the legal profession. If you could, I guess, go back in time and give, I don't know, 22-year-old Tiff one piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
Oh, if I could go back, I would say, invest in yourself sooner and don't get so distracted in the things that you think that you need. Like at that point, I was the I was the person who was the first at Mecca to be buying the makeup, the new clothing, all of that stuff that I thought was going to make me feel better.
Mm,
And in hindsight, I think about how much money I wasted on material things. Well, yes, they can be amazing and you can get them from a good place, but I wasn't doing it from that place. It was my version of probably retail therapy. And if I could go back, and just say, invest in yourself, because you never know like how much you're going to change and grow. And like you said, it's even just that decision of being that person who can invest that amount of money is knowing that you're going to do the work.
yeah, absolutely. And I personally think there's no such thing as a bad investment when it comes to personal development, because even if it's not good, even if what you've bought technically isn't good, you learn something about yourself in the process. Even if it's not good, you're like, well, why was I drawn to this? What was the promise that I was chasing? Is the lesson here that like, maybe I don't need that thing. Maybe I already have it within me, or maybe I'm looking in the wrong spaces for the answer when I really need to look at the places that I don't want to look. Do you feel like what's the next thing for you in terms of personal development, and what is the areas that you're less comfortable to look to, that this is where I have to start to focus?
I think for now, I am really very much in an integration phase. Like
Mm,
I have stepped back a lot from personal development in the sense of constantly feeling like I need to do the work. And now I think I'm in a phase of actually living my life. And I think that season was so important for me. But now I'm realizing, now I'm at a point where I don't yet need to be looking so much outside of me for answers, where I just need to be in the integration phase of learning, applying what I've learned.
mhm,
And because I think, it could be so easy for me to slip back into, I need to listen to another training. I need to get another course. I need to do another
mhm.
thing. And it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really the phase that I'm in at the moment. And I'm diving a lot more into spiritual things, which I had put on the back burner for such a long time
Mm,
because I kind of went too far into I'm listening to my intuition, but it was just a mask for me to be lazy.
Yeah, yeah. I need to take it easy. I'm in my soft girl era. I need to just relax. But I do think integration is huge. And I think it's something that people often miss in the personal development journey, or it takes them a long time to come to, because the learnings and the breakthroughs are really exciting. And it's really cool when you start learning about yourself, you start seeing your behaviors or seeing your motivations with more clarity. But it also becomes a crutch because we start being like, so self-aware that we either don't take action, or we're taking action and using our self-awareness to justify it, but maybe it's still coming from an unhealed place. And I have seen people buy course after course after course, sometimes not even implementing or doing the courses, but having this idea that like, well, if I buy it, the change will just happen. But also it's like it becomes this like accumulation and almost addictive kind of just chasing, 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 whereas you actually need to sit with what you've learned and see how it applies to your life. So I think that's really cool that you're in a place where you're actually integrating. I've done things where I've like, I'm not allowed to buy a course this year. Doesn't matter how good it is, how much it speaks to me. I'm not buying anything this year. I'm not sure if I ever got through the whole year because I love personal development.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, in terms of, I guess, the way the personal development side of things intersects with the entrepreneurship side of things, I mean, entrepreneurship is personal development on crack. Like, you have to be so aware of yourself as a business owner. What has that kind of taught you in terms of running a business where, there's a lot of visibility and there's a lot of showing up for yourself and there's a lot of putting yourself out there to be vulnerable and connect with people? What have been the biggest learnings for you in terms of personal development and how that works with what you do for a living?
Yeah, so I firmly, firmly believe that I don't think I would have survived entrepreneurship while I'm still in it if I didn't do the work prior. And I think that was such a cool realization for me because at the time I was still working full time. So I was still learning about these things and thinking, okay, if I have a business one day, this will probably apply to me later, but I don't really know how it applies to me right now working for
Mm.
someone else. But I think it really just set me up to be an entrepreneur because my mindset now is so different to back then. And I think that is what personal development has really helped me with because, yeah, it is already so hard, especially, yeah, in the online space. You're so visible, you're putting yourself out there, you're taking messy action, being seen, failing. Everyone's wondering what you're doing. I think entrepreneurship is 90% mindset because you've really just got to hone in on your vision and equally be able to back yourself so hard when you have no results, no followers, no clients, no money coming in, inconsistent income, all of that stuff when it is so easy to just be like, okay, fuck it. I'm just going to go get a job.
So, in the long game, we talk a lot about personal standards and the standards of the woman that you are trying to become. So, what do you think the standards of the woman you are now look like compared to when you were back practicing law?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my standards are so different where now it feels like I've truly stepped into the person that I want to be and equally didn't think was possible for me. When I think back to that version when I was in the legal profession, I played so small. I was so quiet, so shy, and that's what I did my entire life growing up. And yeah, I just had no boundaries, no standards for myself because I didn't know what loving myself looked like. I just thought, everyone just, is unhappy in their bodies and unhappy in their lives. And, we're all just going through the motions and, life's hard and the economy and jobs and all of that stuff. So I just really don't think I had standards, which is crazy thinking back because, yeah, I just have so much compassion for that version because she had no idea what she wanted and, yeah, how she was going to get where she wanted to go.
What we talk about a lot is disgustingly easy first steps, because I believe that everyone can change their life. Everyone can embark on a happy, healthier, fitter journey. We just have to start disgustingly easy. So, for the woman who's listening in her car, sitting at her desk, maybe burnt out and daydreaming about leaving her career, what is the disgustingly easy first step that you could tell her to break free from that experience?
Oh, okay. Disgustingly easy first step. What I've been telling a lot of people recently is really just take a moment to actually sit with yourself and not have external distractions and really just ask, what do you want?
Mm,
Because I think with the external noise and how much distractions we have these days, it is so easy to get swept up in what you think you want. Yeah, what you think you want to do. And I think when you really just sit with yourself, it will come to you.
mm,
And even if it doesn't, there will be one action step that you can take next. And it doesn't have to be this big thing of quit your job and start over. Yeah, it could be one, how can I start prioritizing my health so that I
mm.
can be happier and in a more positive mindset? And that will eventually get me to where I want to go. Because, yeah, I just really believe in the power of momentum and
Mm.
compounding. And it's just going to be one step after the other. And you're going to look back and be like, wow, how did I get here? But it's really just those tiny steps. It doesn't have to be the big, huge things.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, even for women who don't know what they do want, if you sit and you have that quiet moment, and locking yourself in your car is a great opportunity if you have kids, without the kids in the car, obviously. But I think sometimes, even if what you want doesn't come up, I guarantee what you don't want will. Like, what do
Yes.
you want? I want not this. I want not that.
Yes.
I don't want that anymore. And so, like, making that phone call, texting that person, like sending that email about, like, I am no longer available for XYZ, and
Yes.
noticing the level of calm that comes over your body, even just imagining, well, what if that wasn't a part of my life anymore? And feeling that, like, that would actually lead to a huge sense of relief, then you know. And I think once you
Yes.
have that awareness, any step forward that is not taking action, you're going to be so present to. Like, I know I'm not doing what I want to do. I know I'm still embarking on something that I don't want to be a part of. And that will just get louder and louder and louder and louder until you take that step.
Yes. I love that. I
Mm,
think that is so important. It's, yeah, not even sometimes thinking about what you need to add, it's what you need to take away because
absolutely.
it's going to make things so much simpler for you.
Amazing. Tiff, thank you so much. Your story is such a powerful example of the disgustingly easy ethos, and not doing everything at once, like following the breadcrumbs, even when you don't have the whole plan, just choosing the next obvious step. And even in the middle ground of grief, burnout, and uncertainty, there is always a step to take. There is always something you can do. So, guys, for anyone listening, remember this: life doesn't change when everything is perfect. It changes when you take, as we said, that first disgustingly easy step towards something that is truer for you. Now, if you loved this convo, come onto socials, come onto stories. Let us know what you loved about this conversation. If this brought up something for you, if you had an aha moment, you can tag me, you can tag Tiff, and I will put her details in the show notes, because her work is intentional, it is beautiful. And for those who haven't met her yet, you will meet her in real life at our next long game retreat, as she will be there to capture all the incredible transformations as they happen. Now, if you're not in the long game and you love the idea of retreating with us, our next retreat will be on the Mornington Peninsula down in Rye, which is the very, very, very south, most southern end of Victoria, about 90 minutes out of Melbourne. This is happening on the 18th and 19th of April in 2026. And you know what? When you join the long game, it's all included in your membership. So you just pack your bags and you let us take care of the rest. You hear me with the word ready, and I will give you a blow by blow of exactly how we're going to help you reach your goals over the next 12 months, including joining us at the next long game retreats. So remember, everyone, when nothing is certain, anything is possible. You've got this, and just make sure you start disgustingly easy.